Well, now that the election has been settled, you would think that the deep state would take a hint on what the American people were actually looking for and what they want, and you would think that they would respect those decisions. But oh no. No, no, no. In fact, this is the point where the losing team, or the deep state, as it is in this situation, is making a full-out sprint to escalate the war in Ukraine. From the AP, Biden authorized Ukraine to use U.S.-supplied long-range missiles for deep strikes inside of Russia. That's lovely. That is lovely. I guess they didn't get the memo that we're not really interested in that anymore. People are sick and tired of seeing the billions of dollars that is actually headed over to Ukraine and getting spent on endless wars, a war that doesn't really have any clear outcome, no way of winning it, and honestly just an escalation with another nuclear power that I would say more than likely be willing to use it in a very restricted circumstance. However, just for the record, we are the only ones that have used nuclear weapons on people. Here we got Biden and Zelensky hanging out. Zelensky obviously has already met with Trump, and he came out and publicly stated, "Oh, I believe that the war will come to a very quick end." With this being the case, what is there to actually gain from attacking Russia in Russian territory from Ukraine using U.S. weapons? That is the question that we should be considering here. What is there to gain? We have essentially 2 months until the new administration comes in. President Joe Biden has authorized Ukraine to use U.S.-supplied long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russian territory, easing limitations on the weapons as Russia deploys thousands of North Korean troops to reinforce its war, according to U.S. officials and 3 other people familiar with the matter. I hate that line so much, but we're just going to use it. That's what they got. The decision allowing Kiev to use the Army Tactical Missile System for attacks farther inside of Russia comes as President Vladimir Putin positions North Korean troops along Ukrainian northern border to try to reclaim hundreds of miles of territory seized by the Ukrainian forces. So they brought in troops, slaves essentially, from North Korea to try to reinforce their lines as they are getting thinner and thinner. However, both armies are kind of at a position where they're already ran down. The supplies are not that great. Their material is not that great, and they kind of keep having these offensive in different places where it's a push and shove. Ukraine, I believe it was about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, they actually made an incursion into Russia. Now, the news made it seem like it was this great big Operation Barbarossa, but it really wasn't. If you look on the map, it's a very small area. They seize a couple small towns, and that's really about it. Now, what would be the significance of that? Well, it could be a bargaining chip in the future. That is for sure, right? They are occupying Russian territory that could be used for trading in the future. Biden's move also follows the presidential election victory of Donald Trump, who has said he would bring it to a swift end to the war and raised uncertainty about whether his administration could continue the United States' vital military support for Ukraine. The official and other knowledgeable about the matter were not authorized to discuss the U.S. decision policy and spoke on condition of anonymity. Ukrainian President Zelensky reaction Sunday was notably restrained. So he's trying to play kind of both sides, more or less being publicly friendly to Trump. However, obviously, this could be overall something positive for him, trying to force an issue on escalating this war. Unfortunately, the spot that Ukraine finds themselves in is that when negotiations do happen, he more than likely, or Ukraine, will be giving up land. That is just the world we live in. I don't see any situation where Russia goes all the way back to the borders in which they were before we started this thing. Tough shit. That's really tough. there's a million other smaller decisions that could have been made to prevent this up until this point. This is the situation we're in. The proponents of this war, I like to ask, what is the plan if to not end the war with some kind of brokered deal? Is it to just continue it? Now, lawmakers have said on interviews that the strategy is to fund the bullets and the beans to Ukraine and their military, and to just simply turn into a giant meat grinder against the Russian military. Now, I understand the strategic input of that. That is wildly wrong. I mean, you're talking about actual people and lives. And the shitty part about it is men on both sides, they don't give a shit. They're literally, they were just going to 9 to 5. They working for a slightly better future, maybe just breaking even every day. And now these two states, which they just happen to be born in, have drafted them, conscript them, or whatever you want to say, to go fight each other in these trenches and have drones attack each other. It's a really sick war. If you look at this kind of has a modern day twist of World War I, where trench warfare, they were just shooting, lobbing mortars at each other, as many as they could. Well, now these people are getting killed. These young men are getting killed with drones that just chase them down. They can't shoot them down. They're very not well trained. They don't have a lot of defenses. They're hiding in trees and putting up massive net situations that they're hiding under. I mean, it's a really sick war, and it's actually a really, really dark glimpse into our future. If you're familiar with the Warhammer 40K series, it looks a little something like that. Where you have just massive drone swarms coming at you, and really you don't have any way to counter that. And so to say, oh, we're just going to supply the weapons and the food and everything that to do to sustain that. Okay, what is the end result? I mean, Russia has millions and millions of people that they can continue just to conscript, and that is something that their country would do and can do for a very long time. How many people are you really looking to kill, and what is the end result of that? Is it a more stable situation in Eastern Europe? Is it a more stable situation in the world? I don't think so. I don't think a country that is having their male population grinded down to oblivion, which Russia was already on a trajectory of negative birth rates and declining population very rapidly already before this thing started. I don't see how that makes a more stable world. And ultimately, I think it makes Russia very unstable, which is very dangerous considering the amount of nukes that they have that are already operational. Well, let's look at roughly how Russia is retaliating. From the AP again, Russia launches one of its fiercest missile and drone attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure. A Russian strike on a 9-story building in the city of Sumy, I could be saying that wrong, in northern Ukraine killed 8 people and wounded dozens. Officials on Sunday, Russia launched a massive drone attack and missile attack described by the officials as the largest in recent months. Among the 8 killed, there was 2 children. More than 400 people were evacuated from the building. The rescuers were checking every apartment. Every life destroyed by Russia is a big tragedy. Now, I agree with that. The drone and missile attack, which target Ukraine's energy infrastructure, came as the fears are mounting by Moscow's intentions to devastate Ukrainian power generation capacity ahead of winter. Desperate times call for desperate measures. We've done things like this in the past, where winter's coming, obviously it's cold over there. To simply freeze out the population is definitely on the table for these people. And for both sides. It's a tactic for both sides. So this doesn't come as really a surprise. Also Sunday, maybe related, maybe unrelated, President Joe Biden, as we just talked about, had given the authorization to use the long-range missiles after extensive lobbying by Ukrainian officials. So we have Ukrainian officials, and I would assume the people that are selling the missiles to the U.S. military, to the U.S. to then give to Ukraine, is also lobbying for this decision, which is the sickest part of it all. I'm sure the stock went up a little bit once this comes out. You'll see a nice strong opening if you want to make a quick buck. Go buy it, write it there at the opening. I'm sure it'll trail upwards. Not financial advice. That's just my opinion. The weapons are likely to be used in response to North Korea's decision to send thousands of troops in support of Russia to the Kursk region, where Ukraine mounted a military incursion during the summer. So there you have it. It's a tit for tat, and it's just going to keep going and going and going. My hope is that they're going to be able to come to the table, and a broker deal is going to be able to happen. Now, Russia has already come to the table a couple times to try to broker a deal. Boris Johnson shut it down before, when kind of right after this thing kicked off. I don't know if you remember, there was a long caravan that almost made it to Kiev. They stalled out. They got attacked. Things started falling apart fairly quickly for the Russians, and they came to the table. Now, looking back, maybe that would have been a good thing, depending on what they were willing to give up. It's the second time the U.S. has permitted the use of Western weapons inside of Russian territory within limits, after permitting the use of the HIMARS system, a short-range weapon, to stem Russia's advance in the Kharkiv region in May. The first reaction from Ukraine to the long-awaited decision of the U.S. was notably restrained. Today, much is being said in the media about receiving permission for the relevant actions, but strikes are not made with words. Such things are not announced. The missiles will speak for themselves, said Ukrainian President Zelensky in his video address. We'll see where he starts striking. Earlier, Zelensky said that the Russians had launched a total of 120 missiles and 90 drones in a large-scale attack. Various types of drones were deployed. Ukrainian defenses shot down 144 out of a total of 210 air targets. Ukrainian Air Force reported later the enemy target was on energy infrastructure throughout Ukraine. Unfortunately, there is damage to objects from hits and falling debris. As a result of the attack, 2 people were killed. Okay. So really, they actually shot down a lot. So it seems like the Iron Dome, or even going back to Reagan's Star Wars theory, it seems to be getting better and better. I know Iron Dome for Israel has been very effective, which is absolutely wild. The Operation Command of Poland Armed Forces wrote on X that Polish and Allied aircraft, including fighter jets, have been mobilized in Polish airspace because of the massive Russian attack on neighboring Ukraine. The steps were aimed to provide safety in Poland's border areas. Again, they touch in a few places. This is obviously a worry to them. Ukrainian drone strikes in Russia. A local journalist died Sunday in Ukrainian drone strike Russia's embattled Kursk regions. Its governor reported Moscow's forces have for months strained to dislodge Ukrainian troops from the southern province after a bold incursion in August that constituted the largest attack on Russia since World War II, and saw battle-hardened Ukrainian units swiftly take hundreds of square miles into the territory. 100 square miles sounds like a lot, and okay, it's a couple hundred square miles. In Russia, though, that is nothing. It is, when you zoom out on the map, it's like, dude, it looks like a very small county, essentially. In Russia, Volgograd province near Ukraine, a man died on the spot after a Ukrainian drone dropped explosives on his car. Local governor said another Ukrainian drone strike on Sunday targeted a drone factory deep inside of Russia, according to anti-Kremlin Russian news channel on the Telegram messaging app. The regional leader, I'm not going to try to read his name, reported that the drone explosion near the factory in the city, blowing out windows but causing no serious damage. A man was briefly hospitalized for a head injury. All right. So they're striking back. They're actually directly attacking the drone factory, which seems like a pretty strategic target to take out. But again, where they are. If you're Russia, and I mean, how are you interpreting this? I mean, you are essentially at war with America. I mean, there's really no other way to look at it. On paper, obviously you're not, but in the heart, in the theory of it all, you are. You're giving these Ukraine, essentially based off what they had before this thing started, unlimited money, unlimited supplies, tons of political capital, and really there's not been many other there's been almost no restrictions on what they can ask for. Every time this guy comes over, we have to fork over billions of dollars, and I'm not really sure what we're gaining other than what I've previously pointed out, which is simply just killing the slaves or conscripts of the Russian army in a massive meat grinder of epic proportions. I mean, there's been hundreds of thousands of people killed. The numbers are definitely underreported on the Russian side when they're reporting. Ukrainian, they might be a little bit better, but those are actually probably bloated for political purposes as well. At the end of this, I think just everyone ends up losing. Russia's military has been fairly hollowed out. Now, they probably have a better opportunity to rebuild faster than Ukraine. Obviously, just by sheer mass of the economy. Ukraine's obviously going to be losing territory. And, Vladimir Putin, even if he gets a good deal where he gets Ukrainian land, I don't think that, I mean, he's almost at his end of his life, but I don't see his people thinking that this is a win. He has done a very good job at insulating his people from this war. But we've seen people do that in the past where eventually that runs out. I will say the U.S. has done a piss poor job at attacking the biggest source of revenue from or for Russia, which is their oil and gas. We have done almost everything the opposite of what we should be doing with opening up LNG to transport over to Europe, pumping more, injecting more into the global economy, leaning on our allies to pump more into the global economy to bring down that price. Russia's economy really does start to slip around $55 a barrel and under. If you get it to 40, 45, they really start hurting. That makes it increasingly challenging to fund this war. Of course, it's sitting much higher than that right now. And if you don't believe me, look at the recent EPA stoppage on a natural gas pipeline that was running through the Texas Rio Grande Valley that was going to move right into the Gulf of Mexico, where we have empty LNG ships waiting to fill up and take that right over to Europe, and stop being so damn dependent on Russian natural gas and oil. But don't bring that up to the Germans, because they continue to shut down their nuclear factories and invest more in wind and solar, even though that they are wildly unreliable. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, comment below, and follow me on X. Love to stay in touch and continue to talk about the news. Got another one coming up right away, and we're going to bring it a little bit closer to home right here in Texas. Thank you. From the Texas Scorecard, real news for real Texans. We don't know who our House Speaker is going to be yet. There's a lot on the table. Dave Phelan was previously House Speaker last year, or the last session, and right now he is facing some serious uphill challenges. The biggest uphill challenge that he has, which is just kind of the all-encompassing, is the fact that there are a lot of Republicans inside the state of Texas that do not want Democrats to chair any committees inside the House. The Republican Party of Texas in the House for a long time now has had Democratic chairs heading certain committees. And this is obviously an act of bipartisanship. This is an act of trying to work together. Now, a lot of Texans are saying, don't do that. They're not allowing us to fully get all of our agenda that we want. They're gumming up processes that, maybe we wanted to get a certain bill passed, or there's a special group or an advocacy group that wanted to get a bill through. Well, it's going to be hard to do when certain committees are headed by Democrat chairmen and don't share conservative values or Republican values, however you want to put that. So Dave Phelan is up on the chopping block, might not be the next Speaker of the House. And of course, we have Rick Perry here, out here actually running around trying to get him to be Speaker of the House. So, hey, that's it. So let's read real quick about this story. This is from This is from again Texas Scorecard. I came in January of 1985, and there have always been Democrat as chairs when we had Republican speakers. This is Rick Perry. When Perry entered the Texas House in 1985, he did so as a Democrat, and Democrats have held a majority in the chamber. Perry did not switch to the GOP until he ran for statewide office. Didn't know that, actually. I'm just learning that. So he used to be a Democrat. Okay. So when he came in, he was a Democrat. Democrat were chairman or chairwomen, head of chairs on these committees. As a Democrat, he moved farther to the left. The practice of awarding them committee chairmanships has come under scrutiny by GOP activists in recent years because the conservative priorities being stymied by House leadership. In exchange for their support in 2020 and 2022, Speaker Phelan allowed Democrats to thwart Republican priorities on issues ranging from election security to education reform and tax relief. When Democrats held the state to block consideration of election integrity legislation, Phelan refused to move their chairmanship. I can see why that would piss a lot of people off. On the Republican primary ballot in 2020, more than 1.8 million Texans voted on the question of ending the practice of giving chairmanship to Democrats. The non-binding proposition passed with more than 80% of support. The issue is priority of the Republican Party of Texas 2025 legislative agenda. That's a pretty big margin when 80%, 1.8 million Texans voted, and they said 80% said they want that to stop. Early this year, 46 Republicans in the Texas House signed a letter stating they would only vote for a candidate of speaker pursuant to the platform and the caucus bylaws, who will only appoint Republicans as committee chairs. Since then, 48 Republican members of the incoming 89th legislature have endorsed David Cook of Manfield to replace Phelan. That's a lot. So he's definitely going to have to shake some hands there and make a couple deals. The incumbent speaker has not released the list of supporters, but Perry told KXAN that he's got the votes to be elected. But when pressed on the names, Perry refused. Perry agreed that when he asked Phelan's pathway to speakership would come from Democrats, supplemented by Republicans. Okay, so he's going to be leaning into some Democratic support to get those votes up. And that makes sense. You know, that does make sense. He's saying, hey, I'm going to keep Democrats on, head of committees, different chairmanships. That would make sense that they're going to show up and vote for them. Perry agreed that when Phelan's pathway to leadership would be supplemented, by Democrats. Yeah, it makes total sense. Last week, Texas United for a Republican Majority issued an unofficial head count in which they could only identify 10 lawmakers supporting Phelan. Sources in the Capitol have said Perry received a 7-figure payout to support Phelan's re-election as part of a bid to bring casino gambling to Texas. Okay, that's interesting. This is a really great article. If you have not check out Texas Scorecard and you want to hear about things going on in Texas that are in depth, this is it right here. Texas Scorecard kicks ass. They constantly have really great articles in here, a lot of on-the-ground reporting. And as you can see, you now have the full scoop on what's going on with the House speakership. And I'm sure it's going to leave you with a lot of questions, but you'll be able to find them from there. So that's really great. We'll see how this turns out. We're coming up on the vote sooner rather than later. The direction of the Texas party, the Republican Party, obviously, as the left has gotten more left, the right appears to be getting more right. Is that really true? Everything says the oval to window is actually moving to the left. Now, I am a bipartisan person. I do think that you should have some Democrats heading some chairs. I think that would probably disenfranchise some amount of Democrats in the state of Texas if you don't. Here's the issue with it. Which chairs do you put them on? Obviously, all of them have some kind of degree of importance in this entire process. School choice has obviously been a massive deal. That is one of Governor Abbott's top priorities for this year. So putting a Democrat at the top of that committee is probably not a good idea. Tax relief, election integrity. Everywhere I go, people continue to talk about election integrity. That's going to be a big one. What kind of workaround or bipartisanship are you going to get from Democrats on election integrity? We saw how this went in during COVID when they all got on the plane and then flew to Washington, D.C. No mask, by the way. No mask. That really pissed me off. Everywhere I had to go, I had to wear a mask. And then they were on the plane drinking beers, no mask. They would stop selling alcohol during COVID on the planes. That also sucks because every time you go into the airport, yes, you want to drink. And when you get on the planes, you want to continue to drink. Who cares if it's 10 a.m.? That's the point. It's a lawless society once you get past TSA. Once they get done patting you down and touch your private parts, you can just start drinking all the pain away and the sadness from being patted down. But they took those things away, and the Democrat House members of Texas said, no, we're actually not going to follow those rules. We don't need the mask mandates right now, and we can drink on our plane. And they got on our private plane, and they flew to Washington, D.C. So that's all really sad. That's all really sad, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this thing plays out. I would like to see some bipartisanship. One thing I definitely do not want to see is a freaking casino in Texas. I like the fact I have to drive my happy ass an hour or an hour and a half up to the Oklahoma border and be on native reserve land and say, oh, okay, cool, now I got a casino. We do not need casinos in Texas, my opinion. I don't want a casino in Dallas. That's for damn sure. Everyone talks about the tax revenue. Casinos are wildly, disproportionately affecting people that are broke. People that are broke, people that are living off the state, show up on the 1st and the 15th with those checks and burn through them immediately. That's the busiest days in a casino. Go on the 1st and 15th and compare it to any other day on the revenue is the busiest days. Thank you, Texas Scorecard. Please like and subscribe if this was of any interest to you. Comment below. Follow me on X. We got a few more videos coming up about what is going on in Texas, what's going on with the election, and what's going on with geopolitics. Thank you so much. If you are a Republican, or if you are a conservative, or if you are America First, or if you are MAGA, you are going to love this next article from The Hill. Republicans make inroads in New York, New Jersey, and a whole bunch of other states, putting Democrats on the defense. It's all about winning, baby. Republicans made inroads in New York and New Jersey this election, spurring hopes that the party could further erode Democratic grips on the state, as seen as deep blue bastions. Right? Sounds pretty cool. Vice President Harris won New Jersey and New York by far slimmer margins than President Biden in 2020. He had won New Jersey by 15 points and New York by 23. Harris carried each state only by 5 points. That is a wild swing. New York by 5 points, so she lost 10. Lost more in New York. Picked up some House seats. Now, we saw something similar in the midterms with the red wave that didn't really materialize. There was a guy in New Jersey that spent almost no money on his campaign. There was a state election. He almost ousted like a 40-year senator there, and that is awesome. Bad news for Democrats in these states, especially New Jersey, because Scott Presler has already said in public he is coming for you. He's going to start registering people to vote in those states. I would like to see something in Virginia too. That seems to be like really close as well. We're talking 2 to 5 points. That's actually a lot in the grand scheme of things if you look at how races actually split. However, can you pick up a House seat? Can you flip the state? Obviously, for the Electoral College, that'd be epic. Can you pick up a Senate or something like that? In New York and surrounding counties, Trump made significant gains, winning precincts in Queens and Manhattan that had been solidly blue for decades. Across both states, Asian Americans, Hispanics, and black voters all cast ballots for Harris, but at significantly lower margins than they did for Biden. We saw historical numbers for Republicans in New York, and that's really something we can build upon. David Lasky, spokesperson for the New York GOP. Republicans in both states view Harris's weak performance as an opportunity to advance ahead of the potentially competitive New Jersey governor's race and the New York mayoral race. I don't think the Republicans should waste time on the New York mayoral race. That ain't gonna happen. Let's just focus on the governor's race. It's probably the best thing to do. They're not focused on economic issues and social issues and energy mandates, but the trends matter because Republicans have the best shot after 2 terms as Governor Murphy and a Democrat making everything more expensive, said New Jersey GOP strategist Janet Hoffman. Media host Mike Spindea, might have said that wrong, and 2021 GOP gubernatorial nominee Jack Cottarelli, have already declared on the Republican side. Democrats in both states have criticized the National Party for not focusing on the economy or immigration, pointing to strong congressional elections, including Democrats flipping 3 seats in New York and hanging on to all their seats in New Jersey, while also electing Republican Annie Kim, D., New Jersey, to the Senate. It's the economy, stupid, was true this first time around and would have helped for Harris to have come out much sooner and have a greater amount of time to campaign. Yes, she should have done her coup way earlier. You're right. She should have done her coup way earlier. She should have directly spoken to issues at the top of the minds of voters, said State Senate J.C. Ramos, who is running for New York City mayor next year. God, I don't know who the freak would want that job. According to Democratic officials and strategists, each of the 3 New York candidates spend time focusing on economy and immigration, which helped them run ahead of Harris in their district. Ramos said Harris spent too much time courting voters in the middle and not activating her base, and took New York for granted. Okay, I do believe that statewide they probably took New York for granted, but if you look at that campaign, the last really 3 to 4 weeks, she really wasn't pitching anything to the people in the middle. It was GOTV, like the whole way. Get out the vote. That's all that matters. We got to activate the base. That was the biggest thing. Her problem is that her message didn't sync with the base. Her message, her base was unmotivated by her messaging, by her in general, by the dissolution of the coup that she had enacted with the Obamas. And they just weren't going to show up for that. They just weren't going to show up for that. And that was their biggest issue. Rep. Richie Torres said Democrats also ran weak on immigration, not proving the case against Trump's plan to deal with the undocumented migrants in New York and New Jersey. Well, you did have a Democrat try to say something about immigration, how they just simply can't handle it. And as soon as he did, he came under investigation. Yes, he came under investigation. Look, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. I don't know exactly what he did. I'm sure it was illegal. But the thing is that he was protected until he spoke up against illegal immigration, because that is ultimately the 20-year plan for the Democratic Party. He said, hey, I can't take this anymore. The city can't maintain this anymore. This is a mistake. We have to slow down. We have to undo this. Boom. Under investigation. Since 2022, I've seen an overwhelming wave of migrants whose impact was found not only at the border, but in cities like New York, whose shelter system and social safety and municipal finances have been completely overwhelmed, said Torres. We know from the polling that there was widespread outrage over the migrant crisis, and in my view, that there was political malpractice on the part of the president while waiting 2 years before issuing executive order regulating migration and border crisis. Yeah, it wasn't that they waited too long to do something, is that they purposely waited to the last minute just before the election and it was on people's mind to do something. Right? They do this all the time with these big issues that they actually don't care what Americans think about, but they have an agenda. They have their other reasonings. They have their dark money. They have their lobbyists. And they're like, okay, well, let's do something right before the campaign. You know, she started talking, I'm going to be hard on the border. I'm going to build the wall. No tips on time. I mean, she just really just try to take the Donald Trump platform and say it while laughing, and that was going to help her out or something. But we all know that it was fake, and the voters in the Democratic Party knew that was fake. They knew she wasn't sincere about the things that she was saying. If they don't take stock of some of the reasons and the trends that they've been seen in the last 3 years among minority voters in particular, maybe making a terrible mistake that could cost them down the road in statewide races. And the level of control of the legislators and even the upcoming mayoral race. However, Leroy Jones, chair of the New Jersey Democratic Party, said Democrats have learned from the election and will focus on economics messaging during 2025 race in New Jersey. Now, notice he just said focus on the messaging and not the actual freaking issue. Yeah, that's right up the alley for the Democratic Party in those areas. I think our messaging this time around was not as direct because oftentimes we try to be the nice party and not speak too harsh to the harsh realities that we're facing, Jones says. I think during the governor's race, candidates will actually speak to the quality of life and affordability of making New Jersey a place people can retire and live comfortably. The campaign is already in full swing with Jersey City Mayor Steve Fulop, New York Mayor Raz Baraka, and these other reps declaring their candidacy. And also we have someone else planning a run, Mikey Shirelli. Or Sherelle. I'm very sorry for butchering your names, but I actually don't care. So as you can see, they barely held on in a lot of these seats. It didn't flip red or anything like that, but it got way too close for comfort. And they're addressing, hey, well, we need to speak about these issues. And nowhere in the article said they're going to actually address these issues, which is so funny. They're not going to address any of the issues. They're just going to speak about them in a better way, you know, closer to the election cycle, and that way they'll still get the votes, but not actually fix any of the issues facing their constituents. That's going to continue to lose credibility with the people in their areas, their constituency, and that's just going to be a long-term win for Republicans, this is the best part about it. Republicans really haven't put a full good foot forward in these areas because they have seemed hopeless for such a long time. Not this time. This is a full offense, flood the zone, register people, get out the vote, restructure the parties in these areas, find good candidates, not only for mayor, not only for the state or for senator and the governor. No, we're talking state reps, school boards, the judges, the sheriff. Get good people to come out and be good candidates. And that has a massive effect across the entire ballot. People are affected by different things. People are motivated by different things to come out and vote. It's not always just a one message that's going to get everyone out to vote. So if you have someone that's like, dude, I actually don't care about the economy. I'm really well off, or I'm on a fixed income. I'm living with family. Most people are, interested in the economy to some degree, but maybe their thing is education and they don't like what's happening with education, but really there's been no one that has moved them to come out and vote until the Republican Party can put together a new board of people that can come out for school board, right? That can get people to come out and vote. Maybe a new sheriff, maybe some new judges, some new DAs, things of that nature. Obviously, we saw Virginia come out. They have that off-cycle election than everyone else, so it kind of gets the biggest media. But, Daily Wire dropped an amazing piece a couple weeks before the election that probably had a really big deal flipping that state to a red governor. When you have those people in those positions, it has a trickle effect if they're effective at their job, right? They can structure how things are done in the state house, how things are done in the Senate, the policing, the economy. Now you have an infrastructure where you can lift up other smaller candidates and kind of bring them under your wing if you're an effective politician and want to do that and build the coalition. So things are looking very bright for the future. I can't say that enough. I've been saying that so much. Things are just looking brighter and brighter for the future. Of course, we're going to have some, turbulence ahead. That's totally fine. We just hang on tight. We keep our nose down, keep it against the grindstone. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, comment below, follow me on X. I'm going to be making more and more of these. We have some really great interviews coming up on our other channel that I will be posting and linking with local candidates around DFW, which I think that you're going to get a real kick out of because some of these people are really interesting. They have a lot to say, and what they are saying really does the things that they're wanting to do or change or get rid of or add to our local governments could really impact our lives in very meaningful ways. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.